Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and today we are going to be looking at the different positions of need for our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints, as we go further into this offseason, approaching free agency and the draft. We're going to look at now I've done this already, and it was a couple of videos, about 50 minutes each. We've broken everything down painstakingly. But I figured I would do another updated version. I've swayed my positions a little bit, and this will be a quicker, probably more simpler format to follow. Now, I'm not going to tell you what position should be more important to you. I'm going to show you how it stacks up to me, and I figured the best way to present this was instead of just ranking the positions, I've got our needs broken up into four categories, which are the need for a starter at a certain position, and whether it's an upgrade or whether we just don't have a starter now. So that's a caveat. Then there's also the consideration of a player that is going to be needed in the immediate future, and that's regarding the older players on our roster and the positions that we could get young at for a future consideration later on, sooner rather than later. Then there is the question of an immediate backup at a position where we either need to improve or we need to get more good depth, and that's a caveat. And then the next one would be a special kind of player, the kind of player that the Saints don't have now, and that we may need, especially with Kubiak's new system being installed. So, and that's, in my opinion, you can look at the different positions of need and you can gauge in your own mind what's the most important. But I think that the best way to set it up is to break it down into these caveats, and that way, whether you feel the same way as I do or not, I think it lends to the validity of how important the need is for these positions. So the two caveats I'm going to pull up first are positions where we need a starter and positions where we are old and we're going to need a future consideration, right? So pull that up. And this is 12 positions right here. Some of them are kind of doubled up, but this is the way that I look at how to examine this position of need. How badly do you need a position? So, yeah, we're going to need starters. We at left tackle, we had Andres Pete last year. He's a free agent now. Don't know if we're going to re-sign him or not. So left tackle is a gaping hole if Trevor Penning doesn't become our starter and play way better than we've seen him play before. So left tackle to me is a position where we need to address it, and we need to put a starter in there. Now, whether Penning's already that guy, or whether we re-sign Pete and he's that guy, or whether Hurst just kicks over to left tackle and plays it, we are still very undecided at who's going to be our starter at left tackle, one of the most important positions on the team. So then you got left guard. Our starter's Hurst. The year before that, it was Pete. We still have Tommy Kramer, and we still have Nick Saldiveri. Now, Saldiveri is kind of like a wild card right here. He may fit the new offensive scheme well. And with James Hurst and Saldiveri, you might be okay at left guard, but I'm under the impression that Hurst isn't really athletic enough to be a left guard in this new outside zone scheme. So we can definitely upgrade there. I mean, regardless of whether we retain Hurst or let him go, I still think you can upgrade at left guard, obviously. Now, Saldiveri's a wild card, so we'll see. Then you've got cornerback, and this is nickel cornerback, of course. Ugo Amadi would be our starting nickel if we re-signed him. Taylor was our starter last year, and we don't want Taylor at nickel anymore. So I've got Amadi penciled in here because this is probably a guy you're going to resign and is really your only nickelback on the roster. If you don't resign him, you have no nickelback on the roster. And I don't like the idea of having Taylor play outside and then all of a sudden forced to go back to nickel at some point in the season. So I'd like to address cornerback a couple of times, or DB a couple of times, with players that can play this nickel cornerback position for sure. So you get Amade, and then you draft someone that can play that, or sign someone in free agency that can play that as well. And when I list these positions of need under the different caveats, it's up to you whether you think the team can address this through free agency or through the draft. So when I mention free agents, I'm talking about re-signing Andres Pete at left tackle or kicking Hurst over. I guess we still have him on the roster. I thought he was a free agent. The NewOrleansSaints.com website told me a couple of months ago he was a free agent, but I guess he's not. So those are positions that you could have a starter, and by addressing it in free agency with Pete, but it's up to you if we can find the money to go get a better player than Pete, or you address it through the draft, one way or the other. I'm just showing you the positions of need, and you can adjust how important they are to you. I think finding a starter is pretty important. Then you got wide receiver. Michael Thomas is out the door. We're going to need a big body guy. We're going to need that X-type guy. So even though we have A.T. Perry, I think it's important that you go and get a starter. I don't know if A.T. Perry is ready to be that every down X guy that's going to run block effectively enough for you and that's going to get open and make all the catches. He looks fabulous, but I mean, he was out there playing for the majority of 7 straight games and he had 12 catches, which makes me think that he couldn't get open a lot of the time, or he was, he's just in a growing period. And I think that a big thing when people talk about the last 5 years of Drew Brees' career here and all the success we had after that 2017 draft, people talk about that 2017 draft and, of course, Dennis Allen becoming our defensive coordinator. And for 5 years, we were really good after that. But Michael Thomas was in another draft, a second-round wide receiver, and he's a big, big reason why we had that much success toward the end of Brees' career, because Michael Thomas was the go-to guy. And I look at the first 4 years with Michael Thomas, and although Thomas can't do that anymore, and probably anyone you go and get won't be able to do what Thomas did, that much in 4 years. To me, it's obvious you need a bona fide starter, a guy you can depend on. The X receiver is going to have to catch more than 12 balls in 7 games. Okay, your X receiver is going to have to catch 70 balls and be a big body, So that's pretty important to me. And you can do that through free agency by getting a big bodied guy. We're talking about Boyd or Osborne, something like that. You probably have to pay $10 million a year, just like you were paying Thomas. But hopefully the player stays healthy and he's just as effective as Thomas in the later years would be, in your imagination, because we haven't seen it. Your next starting position is Sam, linebacker. We don't use it a lot, but we need a starter there. Bond was the guy before. We may re-sign him. We should. But if you get better at linebacker, at depth, for sure, then I'm sure you have a body on the roster right now that can plug in at Sam, whether that's Anthony Orji or whether you're asking Ryan Connolly or Ty Summers, any of those free agents that we could bring back, like Andrew Dowell. So I think we have a lot of options there, not to mention Nefi Sewell and DeMarco Jackson. So hopefully somebody's ready to step up and play the Sam. We don't use it that much. But like worst case scenario, you re-sign Bond for $2 million or $3 million at the most, and he can be your starter right there. So it's not a desperate need right away, especially if you re-sign Bond. I'm putting a lot of hope and faith in the young linebackers we have now. And since the linebacking group in the draft isn't the greatest in the world, it's going to be hard to to fill that spot without spending a little too much money or just finding people that you have questions about. We have a bunch of young guys on the team now. So we'll see. But Sam, linebacker, regardless of how much we play it, is a position that we currently don't have a bona fide starter at. And then my last position I mentioned for starters is defensive tackle. It's because we suffered against the run. Now I've got Saunders and Shepard here because they were our starters, and we need to upgrade. We need to improve. Now we just extended Shepard, so I don't think he's going anywhere for at least another year or two. So this is tough for me. You would have to get a pretty good player to come in and take these guys' place. And remember, Shepard was starting ahead of Bresee, and we want Bresee to be our starter at the 3. So Bresee has to get much better at stopping the run before that happens. And we just weren't very good against the run across the board. So it's a tough spot for me. And in my opinion, you could look at it as we're okay because we have depth, especially if we re-sign Malcolm Roach. And you spent that high pick on Bresee last year. You've got veterans. Maybe they get better this year after 1 year under the system. It's just one of them things where I know we need to get better against the run there. And whether these two players, Saunders and Shepard, can step up and do it, especially at their point in their careers, I'm not sure. Now, you go and get defensive tackle in free agency. I mean, come on. Chris Jones is going to be asking for $30 million a year. Drew Brees didn't make $30 million a year. I'm so sure. I hate the $40 million a year. Is that what it's going to be next? Is that how much it's going to cost? I hate this money junk with the league. I love player unions, and I want people in jobs to get the best opportunity that they deserve. But yeah, when you're poor and you're looking at a guy demanding $30 million a year, and then it's a salary cap, if they pay you that much, you're not going to have enough to pay everybody else. So don't be selfish. Be like Drew Brees and Tom Brady, who capped theirself at $25 million so that there would be more money. That's just the way I look at it. How much more money do you need? Anyway, that's your starters right there. You need a left tackle, a left guard, a nickel back, a starting wide receiver, a Sam linebacker, and a defensive tackle upgrade. I think that's starters that need to be filled. And when you talk about the importance of positions on this team, I don't know if there's anything much more important than a starter. And that's really expensive and difficult to find. So now we're looking right there at future considerations, and this could be just as important as finding a starter. You've got Cam Jordan, who just signed another extension, and he's not nearly as good as he was. And I think if you address defensive end early in the draft, you can find a guy with talent that can replace Jordan sooner rather than later. I just worry about a smaller edge rusher being every down defensive end. Cameron Jordan can't be as good as he was earlier in his career against the run. Otherwise, we'd have had better numbers from Jordan. We'd have had better numbers against the run. So I'm not even sure what good Jordan's doing out there anymore. He's your starter right now. You're going to have him in on early downs. You're going to need someone to rush the passer on third down. And you're going to need somebody that can stop the run better than Jordan, obviously, after however many years he's been playing with us. He's just deteriorating right before our eyes. So my feelings. I'd rather get a big body to put on end and then have a smaller guy for third down. I don't want to spend a lot of money on a one down player that's a pass rusher unless we can find a spot for him somewhere else. So, a guy like Vaughn who plays linebacker on early downs and then rush the passer at defensive end is about the only thing I can think to do with a tweener, except have him sit on the bench until the other team's passing the ball. But that is a future consideration. Defensive end, very important position to address in free agency or the draft. The type you get is up to you. We'll see what happens. You get a smaller end out there, and the other team, if I was the other team, I would just run at them all day long. But that is a big position in need. Right tackle is another future consideration, of course. Everything sounds like Ramczak's coming back. He's going to be fine. He had a minor procedure, and he says he's good to go. He'll be ready for training camp and the season. And hey, if we can keep him as our starter for 2 more years, not bad. But it would still be nice to have the future at tackle. Because if you're starting the season with Andres Pete and Ryan Ramczyk, you know in a couple of years we're going to need somebody else to step up. So that's a huge future consideration as well. And of course, at safety, Tyrann Mathieu is going to retire, whether he is our starter for the next year or two or not. It's coming sooner than later. And the Saints have released Marcus May officially off the team, so Jordan Howden becomes our starting safety. And I think the Saints have plans to re-sign Jonathan Abram and Lonnie Johnson Jr. and Ugo Amadi. And if they do that, we're going to have a lot of good veteran, cheap depth. But getting rid of May sure does put a focus on safety. Yeah, we got Howden to take May's place, but who's going to be our dime guy? Well, it could be Jonathan Abram if you resign him, and then you got a good backup in Lonnie Johnson if you resign him. But Matthews still has to be replaced in a couple of years. So injecting some more youth in that secondary at safety becomes pretty important for a future consideration now that Marcus May is certainly gone and Howden has a spot now. You need a replacement for Matthew eventually. Then you got linebacker with Demario Davis. He says he wants to play forever, right? So he keeps producing the way he is. This is his last year coming up, and we might re-sign him at 36 years old. I don't think you'd be overpaying him to re-sign him to be your bona fide starter if he's going to keep producing. But, man, you're cutting it close. Paying a guy top money at 36, 37 years old, tough. Maybe Pete Werner is the heir apparent at middle linebacker, which would make will linebacker a necessity. So either way, a future consideration to back up Davis. And however you get that linebacker, whatever position he plays. So now you've got a consideration for strong side and linebacker. And for you edge rushers, lovers out there, yeah, we're in desperate need for a linebacker. I don't know if you get that good in the draft or not, or in free agency, but huge consideration. And the last two, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara. Kamara's going to be with the team at least one more year. I think a couple of more years. I think we should just let the man finish out. And Derek Carr, they're never going to get rid of him until they get rid of Dennis Allen. So just get over it. Everybody that wants a quarterback first round in the draft, I don't think Clint Kubiak is going to have that kind of power to tell Dennis Allen in his final year to go and grab his pet project, beloved Derek Carr's replacement in the first round when Dennis Allen's in his last year. No. But we do need somebody to take Carr's place eventually, because whether he gets considerably worse in the next couple of years or not, we all want to go away from Carr. And maybe after this year, he performs at a level where people are a little more, accepting of him. But it's a future consideration, but it's likely not going to get addressed in the draft, not early. And then halfback, same thing. You hope Kendre Miller's your guy. Injuries, you just don't know. Alvin Kamara, whether he plays for the next couple of years for us or not, I don't think he's going to last much more than 3 or 4 more years. So you hope Kendre's the future, but running back is a 2-player position. You need a backup, and Jamal Williams would be that guy if Miller eventually takes Kamara's place. And so, yeah, we could get better there. I'm thinking halfback can easily be addressed as a rookie free agent or as a veteran with a lot of experience in this outside gap scheme, and you're looking for a number 3 guy. So it's definitely a future consideration, but doesn't have to be addressed with a big-time free agent or a high draft pick. So to me, regardless of what position you think we need to draft and what's more important, I thought it would be nice to just present it this way. These are the starters that you're looking for. You need starters at these positions, and you need big time youth and future consideration for starters at these positions. And whether you think that justifies these positions as the most important to address or not, I think it has a lot to do with it. I think before you look at anything else, you really should be looking for starters and for needed youth where you're old. And to me, that makes these positions the most important positions to address. But I wanted to present it this way and these caveats, and not to say that one thing is more important than the other and to let you guys figure it out. And now I'm going to pull up the last two caveats. These are the positions where we need an immediate backup and positions where we need a player that's special, somebody that we may need on this team that we really don't have now. So for backup, quarterback, obviously, everyone says re-sign Jameis Winston. If we don't, it's going to cost us $10 million if we let him go. How's that possible? How on earth did this football team re-sign this quarterback that they don't even like to a contract like this? I didn't know it was going to cost us $10 million to let him go. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I love Jameis Winston as a person, okay? I love him as a teammate. As a backup, making $800,000 or something like that, I'd like you for $2 million. I'd like you for $4 million. I'll have you come back and be our backup right now, despite how little I think you can provide us as a player, actual football player. I'll resign you for $4 million because I value your character and everything else that much. But Jesus, H, flipping $10 million if we let him go. You almost have to bring him back now. And that pisses me off. Because I'd rather go get a guy that's going to make $2-3 million. A veteran. Just like Jameis. It's a veteran. In case Carr gets hurt, you have somebody to go in there besides Haener. So now I hear this, I don't know what to think anymore. I really wanted to go get a free agent quarterback, not Jameis Winston, and I don't know how to feel about it anymore. But regardless, my rant's out of the way. We need a backup quarterback for sure. And you hope Jake Haener shows some strides. And as far as addressing this in a draft, the right player has to fall to you at the right spot, and getting a first-round quarterback is, I would bet against that. I would bet against that harder than anything else, except for punter and kicker and fullback. Next, the backup consideration of halfback, which we can talked already about with the future consideration. Williams because of his ineffectiveness, and then Miller because of his injury history. So once again, you can address this with a rookie free agent, I think. We're good at finding undrafted running backs. And then we have James Robinson, we have Jordan Mims, and we're going to go find some outside zone running backs that won't cost much. And that's how I feel we're going to address that. But if the right guy falls to you in the draft late, you know, you have 9 picks. 7 of them are going to be awful 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. So you go ahead and grab a running back there. You know, we have a lot of positions of need. I think I would trust my scouting department on rookie free agents and not use a pick on one. And then defensive end, once again, I'm mentioning it as a huge consideration. Not only do you need a replacement for Cameron Jordan, but you also need good depth. Because to me, Turner is a guy that might as well just not even be on your team. You gotta just accept that he's going to be hurt and he's not going to be available. Isaiah Foskey's not going anywhere. So right now, you've got Cam Jordan, you've got Carl Granderson, and then your backup is Tano Passanio, who's very good as a backup. Isaiah Foskey, who's not going anywhere. And you have Peyton Turner, who's going in his last year. You just don't know if he's going to stay healthy or not. Peyton Turner stays healthy, you got a nice backup. And I love Tano, even though he's not great. I mean, he's so serviceable. He can play both sides of the line, inside and out. I love Tano. So And then you could re-sign Kyle Phillips, put him on the practice squad. So, there's ways to address defensive end, especially if Turner stays healthy and Isaiah Foskey becomes a much better player. You're going to feel a little better about defensive end. I still don't like the fact that we have an old guy in Cameron Jordan who's struggling now. And I don't like the prospect of putting in Foskey to stop the run once Cameron Jordan retires. I don't like the prospect of Tano Passanio being your starter at left end on running downs. I like the prospects of him being a backup, but plug and play. But so I think defensive end is a big consideration. I think you need a guy that can stop the run. And of course, you also need a guy who could rush the passer. Turner and Foskey are supposed to be pretty good at rushing the passer. So we have two bodies there already. We just need to fix the defensive line. And then I got linebacker mentioned again for a third time. Not only do we need a starting Sam, and we also need an eventual replacement for Davis, but we also just need a better backup altogether. I think a guy that knows all three spots, that's a good veteran, an upgrade from the younger players we have now, a guy that could possibly plug in at Sam and still come in if Will or Mike gets hurt, can come in and take their spot. That would be nice. Now, Nephi Sewell, DeMarco Jackson could be those players. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I would love for a really good linebacker to fall to us in the 5th round, and we use a draft pick on that guy, and he comes in and he's better than all these other players because we're really young at linebacker as far as depth goes. I think Jackson was a 5th round pick, and I don't think anybody else on the list was even drafted. So, I feel like if you get a linebacker in the 5th round, there's a potential the guy just is physically better than everybody else we have. So that's linebacker once again. And then offensive tackle, of course. If Trevor Penning doesn't become our starter and you're relying on him to be your backup, then you might have some issues. Landon Young is your backup right now, so if Ramczyk can't play up the right side, Landon Young goes in. I don't like that. He's a 6th round pick. He's okay. He's just okay. I don't like the idea of him starting. It was a miracle. The game that he started and he played okay, it was a miracle, and I think we had to adjust the game plan and everything else. And then I think the next game he held up pretty good too. But yeah, I don't like the idea of having a 6th round draft pick with the ability that Young has shown us to be a guy we rely on as a backup. Honestly, no. I think the depth is so good in the draft that you could get a tackle in the 4th, 5th round, and he can come in here and compete with Young to be sure. And then if Trevor Penning doesn't work out, if he's going to be another guy you can't even count on to be a 6th offensive lineman, then yeah, you're going to need depth at offensive tackle. Not just a starting left tackle and an eventual replacement at right tackle, but an upgrade at backup tackle. You have Hurst. You re-sign Pete. You alleviate some of this stuff. Trevor Penning turns a corner. It's a huge, massive boost for this team. If Penning can turn into a bona fide starting left tackle, he doesn't have to even be a Pro Bowler. Just don't go out there and get Derek Carr killed. That would be a huge upgrade. Trevor Penning and Peyton Turner are two players that if they stay healthy and they play to the top of the ability that they've shown they have, Penning hasn't shown much yet, but we all know he's huge, he's athletic, he's strong, so much potential there. Trevor Penning and Peyton Turner could be like, diamonds in the rough all of a sudden at 1st round picks. If they upgrade, it would be nice. And then finally, an outside cornerback. If you trade Lattimore, you've got a Debo, you've got Taylor. I think you seriously need to re-sign Isaac Yiadom. I think he's a guy you re-sign whether you get rid of Laddie or not. And so that's the fluctuation for cornerback, outside cornerback there. If you keep Lattimore and you re-sign Yiadom, you don't really need any more depth there. You can never have too many cornerbacks, right? And then that last category is the specials category. And I think although this is out of starters or future starters or immediate backups. This to me is the lowest tier of necessary position to fill, but it's still extremely necessary. If you're going to operate the offense we want to run, especially tight end for starters, I think you need a complete guy, a guy that can run block, a guy that you're not scared to put in line. I'm not sure if Juwan Johnson or Taysom Hill is that guy. Foster Moreau shows he can do it. Johnson in line blocks. It's just you can upgrade at that. Johnson, of course, we all know is more of a receiver, and he can do a lot of special things at tight end in that aspect. But you'd like for him to get a little better run blocking. And then Foster Moreau can do everything. He's just, slower at it. And in Taysom Hill, I think he's fine. I think if he shows he can be a good blocker on the move, then he fits a nice little special need at that position too. But it would be nice to have a complete guy, a real tight end who can line up on the line and block and then split out and run routes. We don't have a guy that can do it all very good, except for Morrow, and he's just not athletically gifted like some other tight ends we could pursue. So, yeah, I would grab a tight end late in the draft. I would grab a couple of rookie free agents for sure and get them in the mix. But yeah, tight end in Shanahan offense needs to be a special player. So let's see what happens there. At running back, we don't have a guy with speed. So you get a guy that's good at outside zone. You get a guy that's good at receiving, can be a third down back type. You can split Alvin Kamara somewheres, anywheres on the field and still have that little third down back with speed. We don't have that. We don't have a running back with speed. And a third down type back, which the Saints love. Kamara ended up being our all-time starter back. So that's a special kind of player that we don't have on the team that we could be in the market for. A wide receiver with yak ability. Yes, indeed. We don't have that. Except you hope you have it in Shaheed, and he shows incredible promise. So that kind of wide receiver that can be the Deebo Samuel type, Shaheed is it. I know he is. We know he is. We need a guy with yak. So Olave can get a little better every year, and then he might end up being okay, but he's definitely not a yak guy. And if we go get a bigger body, you kind of expect maybe broken tackles could lead to yards after catch, but other than that, yeah, special player. So Rashid is that guy right now. And, something happens to Rashid, who else takes his place at that spot? It's just one of those considerations. You have a new offensive coach coming in. He's going to want wide receivers with yak. We know that. He's also going to want wide receivers that can block. Man, those guys are hard to find. A guy that can run block and catch the ball and get yards after catch, man, good luck with that, but it is a need. And my last two here are fullback and edge rusher. Fullback, because this hybrid is what we're going to need, tight end / halfback type, and you hope you already have that with pieces like Johnson and Hill. And I already said you need a complete tight end. So what you need maybe is the best tight end you can get, which would be Brock Bowers at 14. Now, I'm not advocating for that. I'm saying that these caveats are presented as, positions of need, and I kind of rank them importance as in you need starters, you need future considerations, you need primary backups, and you need special players. But if somebody falls and can fit one of these needs, then you go and do it. And I wouldn't be spending a first-round pick on a backup. I'd be spending a first-round pick on somebody who's going to start eventually or someone that's going to start immediately. But if it's a special player in that tight end spot, seems like Brock Bowers is the guy, that tight end halfback hybrid. He even ran the ball out of the backfield at Georgia sometimes. The guy could do it all. And then finally, edge rusher. And this, to me, can be either a defensive end or a linebacker, a guy whose number one ability is getting after the passer. And if you address that in the first round, I feel like it's a wasted pick unless you tell me what position he's going to play. If Dallas Turner can play the will linebacker and he can cover and he can play every down at will and he can be an upgrade from Pete Werner, you get that guy. You get him right now. But he's got to cover on first and second down. He's not just going to come in on third down and rush the passer on the end. He's got to be versatile enough to take Werner's spot at the will or Davis's spot in the middle. He's got to be an every down linebacker. Put his ass at Sam on first and second down as long as you're using him. I don't want to draft a first-round pick that's not getting used. And I don't want him to be out of position. If he's going to be another Zach Bond and can't keep up, then it's a wasted pick to me. But if you can utilize him as a pass rusher and as a linebacker, then, yeah, you go and get him. If he's an upgrade at Sam or he's an upgrade at will and he can rush the passer, you definitely go get that guy. So those of you in love with Dallas Turner, please tell me what position he's going to play, please. Because if you tell me that he's good enough to start ahead of Pete Werner, so you're going to go and draft the first-round player that's going to take the place of a guy who's one of the best players on our team already to start with. Werner ain't good enough to get after the passer, so we need a pass rusher there. So there you go. That's it. The caveats as presented. You need starters. You need future considerations. You need immediate backups. You need special players that we don't already have on the roster. So there are the positions that we need. Pretty much, more importantly than anything else, and how you want to rank them is up to you. But I thought this exercise was fun. New Orleans football. You know, I recorded this video a couple of days ago, and New Orleans the video failed. I couldn't keep it, so I had to record this. And NOF did their breakdown yesterday of do you draft them or do you sign them in free agency, re-sign them, that kind of thing. That was one of their best shows. I loved that. That's the kind of stuff I loved. They pulled up the position. They talked about the situation and they talked about the different things. And that's the kind of video I like to make as well. So I had this coming. And then, you know, my computer failed me. So, but it's here now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this about the Saints. I love my boys. I am a fan. I come from a fan's perspective. And I invite all of you to please tell me how you rank them. But if you're going to tell me, I'm begging you, if you're going to tell me edge rusher and that's it, please be more specific. Make it easy for my dumb mind, okay? Defensive end or linebacker, which down is he going to play? What is he good at? And how are we compromised as a result of picking this player? Okay. Thank you. I'm Joe. And until the next one, I will talk to you later.